Good morning. I and Ricardo are going to talk about how Zero Trust combined with AI is actually helping deliver business value. We are all driving digital transformation. It's become a buzzword, but overall, every business must become competitive. It must become agile. And to do so, technologies are playing an important role, whether it's mobility or it's cloud or it's IoT, OT, or AI/ML. Without these core technologies, business won't be able to do a whole lot. In fact, they'll stop functioning, which means the role of IT and the role of cyber is becoming more and more important. CIOs want to build applications faster, deploy them faster. They want to collect telemetry from IoT, OT to make decisions for preventive maintenance and more. That's why in the past 10 plus years, you've seen big transformation of applications from data center to the cloud. The debate is not about either or. The debate is that they could coexist, but cloud is helping. We are transforming applications. We're no longer lifting and shifting applications to the cloud. We realized that that did not help a whole lot. But when application moved, network got to change, security got to change. And we're still lifting and shifting the network to the cloud. We're lifting and shifting security to the cloud. That must change. That's the focus Zscaler is driving with a lot of customers out there, with some of the biggest companies who generally have a lot of inertia. But this transformation requires a mindset change. It must be driven at the C-level because these changes create discomfort. And the lower down you go in the organization, the bigger the discomfort. Hence, IT leaders, security leaders need to drive it. In fact, this change is driven by networking and CISO together. It can't be done in isolation. It's not about move this firewall with a faster firewall, a VPN box from on-prem to the cloud. And we're going to talk about how we are trying to drive it. First, let's look at what we've done over the past 30 years, starting in early 90s. Our networks may have become faster. It may become wireless. But the fundamental TCP/IP protocol, the way networking works, hasn't changed. You connect to the network in a branch office, you get on it, you move laterally, you find application, you connect. Life is wonderful. It's wonderful for bad guys too. And then you extend it to every household with this lovely VPN. You're sitting in Moscow, you can do everything you could do in the office because VPN puts you in the office. And since you must work with your customers and suppliers and partners, you're extending your network to every customer and suppliers. And to really embrace cloud, you're extending your network to every cloud region. It's becoming a big, flat, beautiful network secured by this beautiful red perimeter. Everything inside is trusted, everything outside is untrusted. The problem is this network is everywhere. Where do you put those firewalls in the cloud? This model that has served us well needs to be disrupted, must be changed. And the Zero Trust architecture is don't trust anyone, give minimal trust. In this model, applications are merely destination, users are out somewhere, everything connects to the internet. And Zero Trust architecture, the heart of it, is a policy engine that connects right party to right party based on identity and a few other things such as device posture check and the like. It's simply that simple. With this architecture, a lot of stuff you built over the last years goes away. Look at how complicated your DMZ is, the inbound DMZ, outbound DMZ, a lot of networking stuff. It creates simplicity, better security, but it's a mindset change. People are going to say, I have been doing my firewalls with 10,000 rules for the last 30 years. Can I get away with that? My network, my routers, the mindset has to change, and you leaders need to drive it. So what's happening today? A big transformation. People think they're doing transformation. Network gets extended. They move their firewall to the cloud as a VM. And they move the VPN to the cloud as a VPN. And they call it Zero Trust Cloud Security. It's still the same mesh network, it's same route table management, everything. And it's the same attack surface issue you have because any IP address that's exposed to the internet is your attack surface. Okay. And it's the same lateral threat movement because a single infected machine in a branch on the cloud can traverse laterally and infect everything out there. And it's done by buying more and more stuff out there. Isn't helping. Complexity is the enemy of security. Complexity is the enemy of resilience. Things don't need to be complex. It reminds me how complex our traditional cars are. They've evolved, they've done well. But if you want zero emission and more reliability, you want a simple electric engine that has very few moving parts. That's the analogy we should be thinking about when we need to transform, we need to change our network, we need to change our security. Sometimes I wonder, we are all focused on cyber, but we seem to be losing this war against bad guys. Every other week, some complicated stuff. All these things are happening out there. And they are serious stuff. We need to really take a look and say, what approach do we take? Trying to keep on adding bandage on top of solutions that really aren't doing any good isn't really very helpful. That's how we want to look at it. This is not to say Zscaler is perfect. By no means. We all have to worry about it. I'm paranoid, just like you are paranoid, and we need to be. But looking at clean slate in a holistic fashion is what we need to think about. So, I was asked to present to a group of CFOs, and the question they asked was, Jay, we are spending so much money on cyber, and still companies are getting breached. Why isn't our money saving us? So I had to present it in a simple, non-geeky fashion to CFOs. Okay. So I said 4 steps to rob a bank. Number 1, you find all the bank branches, probably the 500 branches out there. Then they say, let's find branches that are easy to break in. Maybe surveillance camera is not working. Perhaps in a secluded area, you get in without getting detected. Number 3, once you're in, you move laterally, you search for a cache safe. Once you found it, you want to get out of it as fast as possible, and perhaps there's a getaway car waiting for you. Ransomware and some of these sophisticated attacks, they have the same similar 4 steps. 1, they find your attack surface. Any IP address, it's a firewall, VPN, or application portal that's exposed to the internet is your attack surface. Number 2, they want to compromise you. They want to find a VPN box that's vulnerable, can be exploited, an application that has log4j or something, or a user can always fall for things. If nothing else, social engineering always works. So they get compromised. And if the user or the machine is on your network, guess what? Networks are designed to let things move. They move laterally, they find a high-value asset, encrypt it, and ask for ransom. It happens so often, unfortunately. And number 4, they want to steal your data, and almost all data stolen gets exfiltrated to the internet out there. So we focus on these 4 steps. We don't focus on one more security gadget and one more security gadget. Let's look at holistically. And this is where the core Zero Trust comes in. Unfortunately, Zero Trust has been hijacked. Now, it's more than one vendor, one product. But it's a starting point. You can get started with something rather than thinking about a long-winded stuff. So this is a simple explanation of Zero Trust. Since you trust no one, you don't trust people being on the network, applications are merely destinations. They're out there somewhere like an island. You can put all applications in 2 buckets. On the upper right, application you manage in your data center, public cloud, or your factory. On the upper left, applications managed by others. This is SaaS applications and internet. Users are out there somewhere. They're like islands alone. Since you don't need a route table network that lets you move on laterally, so you go through a switchboard. Literally think of Zero Trust Exchange like a switchboard, a policy engine. The traffic comes to it. The number 1 thing in Zero Trust, identity. Who are you? So we can integrate with all identity providers to do single factor, multi-factor. Then you can define which application or destination you can access, not putting on them on the network. Very important. Number 3, knowing that identity can be stolen. You look at a number of other risk factors on a continuous basis. You're looking for unusual behavior of users, probably destination, probably applications and the like. So the policy can be adaptive. And these signals can come from multiple parties. Okay? You take the signals and apply a policy per session. For internet and SaaS, you can do a simple outside-in connection that everyone has always done. When that happens, your application is exposed. But if Salesforce is exposed, or Office is exposed, it's those vendors' problems to protect them. But on the right side, the application you build and run, it's your problem to protect them against DDoS attacks and all Log4js of the world. So for that, in the Zero Trust architecture that Zscaler pioneered, we're using a connector, app connector, to open an inside-out connection, so there's no outside the in connection allowed. That's the key to hide your applications behind us. They are not exposed to the internet. They don't resolve out there. Think of it. I would love to see a day when all CISOs are out there making proudly a statement that I have no public-facing IP address of my company. The day will come. It's just taking time. A lot of Zscaler customers have probably less than a handful of things that are exposed, and most of them are marketing website. Anything that requires, anything that's of value requires authentication. That should be hidden behind. So how do we help? The 4 stages. In this model on the right, first of all, your applications go dark. They can't find you. They can't attack you, number 1. Number 2, if everything goes through the inspection checkpost, you can prevent compromise. 3, if you only connect the user to application, don't put them on the network, the lateral movement goes away. This whole segmentation story everyone talks about, I yet to find a company that says, I have done it well, I've done it successfully. Because it's an impossible task. You put things on the network. It's like, I allow you to get into my castle. Now I'm worried that you're going to go here and go here and go here. Let's build a wall here, wall here, wall here. Not very easy to do, okay? And 4, you can inspect anything that's going out there to prevent data loss. That's how we look at holistically. That's, for us, is a mission to work with our customers to help in all these areas. Many times people get confused. They say, well, what you describe is my firewall can do it too. NOV, National Alvarca, the CIO, a smart guy, Alex, he said, this is how I explain, he said, a firewall is like a bridge. Once you open the bridge, traffic starts flowing, which is wonderful. Okay. Now, a Zero Trust architecture like a switchboard. Everything comes to switchboard. One-to-one connection gets made. It's one-to-one. It's almost like a phone, one-to-one call. That's really what you need to understand. If you are dealing with managing IP addresses and propagating them, you aren't doing Zero Trust, no matter what the vendor calls it. They may call it Zero Trust 3.0, 4.0, or 5.0. Zscaler has built 5 key solutions in this area. Our first job was to make sure your employees can access any application anywhere. But why not extend the same thing to your workloads too? Workloads are somewhat like users. They talk to internet. They talk to each other. How about IoT, OT? They need to communicate, telemetry. You need to access them. So the same core Zero Trust engine can help you get there. B2B, your customers, suppliers, and partners. Why should you have an open portal to the internet? Then you're trying to buy a DDoS protection, this firewall, that firewall. Put them behind a Zero Trust exchange. In the process, then, you end up securing data in communication, and also data on SaaS application, data on cloud, endpoint, as well as the rest of stuff. And securing application by hiding them, by eliminating the attack surface, adding some of the honeypot technologies and the like. And lastly, Zero Trust networking. I personally believe that just like customers benefit by going from MPLS to SD-WAN, SD-WAN did a good job for networking leaders. SD-WAN did 0 from security point of view. A single information branch, SD-WAN beautifully let it get wherever they need to go. We need to get to a model where each branch office becomes just like Starbucks. Think of it. The management overhead goes away too. It'll be almost like a Comcast router sitting at your home. Why shouldn't the same thing should be happening in your branch offices? That's what we are driving. And taking all the logs and being able to deliver actionable insights by being able to disrupt the traditional cumbersome security operations, that needs to be done as well. I won't spend time into segmentation, but at a highest level, it's the biggest problem. Companies are spending so much money on it, and they all start with network. If you do Zero Trust, you should be able to do segmentation, user to applications without touching the network because you're not putting people on the network. Think of it. Same kind of segmentation can be done for workloads, Zero Trust segmentation. How about your branches and factories becoming Zero Trust? They're not on your network. And lastly, device segmentation for IoT, OTs, and the like. We did a recent acquisition whereby intercepting DHCP requests, we can actually create a network segment of one per device without having to do all these east-west firewalls and the like. And AI/ML is a big deal. We are serious about it. We think this needs to be solved in an effective way. We recently acquired a company called Avalar that took a very, very innovative approach. Rather than trying to create one more data lake, it can ingest logs without creating a copy of it, really do some modeling, deduping, harmonizing, and creates models around with metadata that allows you to do a bunch of things ranging from holistic risk to co-pilots, vulnerability management, and breach prediction. Okay. We believe enterprises, the CISOs, don't want 50-point products, but they don't want one single cloud security platform that does everything. You're seeing some of the issues with Microsoft and other vendors out there. Imagine one vendor dealing with all the stuff out there. So our belief is we're going to do some of the core areas. You should always have a dedicated focus vendor for EDR that's separate from the rest of the stuff. Identity should be separated. 3 core pieces: an inline policy engine from one provider, identity from a second provider, and EDR from a third provider, so you don't mix them up. Yet you're not going to get 50 of them or one of them. That's really the philosophy we advocate and customers like it. These solutions are fundamentally critical. You need resilience and disaster recovery. We're the first company that launched resilience, full disaster recovery cloud. So if something goes wrong, and things can go wrong to anybody out there, your business must keep on running. If you do Zero Trust right, you can save tons of money and pay for it many times over. But you'll have to drive it because, as a CIO told me last year, it's hard to buy new stuff in today's market, but it's much harder to eliminate what we have. There are lots of emotional ties and everything out there. But leadership needs to really take stance and drive it. Okay. So our focus, good architecture, making sure we deliver a mission-critical service at lower cost, and good market leadership. With that, I'd like to invite Ricardo to join me to talk about his transformation story at Kraft Heinz. Ricardo.
Thanks, Jay. So Jay has highlighted a beautiful utopia, which is super awesome, and it is plausible. But I'd like to also provide a little bit of our journey, how we got where we are, and a little bit of reality too. Not saying that, the utopia sure. Here. Right. So a little bit about Kraft Heinz, purveyor of delicious goods, about $27 billion in revenue, 37,000 employees, and all those delicious brands. All right, so we're going to talk about a little bit of the drivers, where we started with our journey and where we went. So the biggest thing is we wanted to make sure that our controls followed our users wherever they were. So our first journey was really identifying, we have a legacy architecture, as Jay highlighted on the VPN side of the house, where every time you want to connect, it's a very slow, laborious process. Everyone hated it, never worked right. It was super slow. And more importantly, it gave them unfettered access to the environment. So going to the analogy that Jay highlighted, once the bridge is built from all those end users, it propagated across the environment. And to give you a little bit of scale of the VPN environment, we had about 5,000 to 10,000 users per day active on VPN. So just imagine 5,000 to 10,000 bridges active all throughout the day that could be an attack point across the board. So we want to start our journey into Zero Trust, removing that level of risk and really transforming the network in the vision of the coffee shops. So going back, everything was hub and spoke. All VPNs went to our data center, and also we had data centers globally where all of our traffic would egress to the data centers and then spread out. So very archaic legacy environment that is pretty traditional in many organizations. So we're like, why don't we turn this whole idea upside down, where any user from any location just has access to their respective application. You're like, oh my God, role-based access is a complete nightmare. It never works. It requires a lot of dynamic changing to environment. You are 100% correct. So what we did is we took more of a modular approach and said, all right, let's take the small steps to get to Zero Trust. So very basics. Let's make sure MFA is required for everything. What a novel concept that we're still talking about that, but that was one of our core requirements. So MFA and identity were the core of all of our control sets. So as we moved from there, we decided, what's better than VPN? VPN 2.0. And let's be honest, most people that are starting down the Zero Trust journey start with VPN 2.0. And you're like, what the hell is VPN 2.0? Let me tell you. You move from layer 3, so network layer when you access the environment, to layer 7. So you are still have access to the environment, but more at the application level. And yes, it does reduce your attack surface. Is it this perfect utopia? Not yet. So we started with that first level of VPN 2.0, and we had a project called VPN Killer because we wanted to make sure it was eradicated from the environment. So by allowing VPN 2.0, it was also a test bed for us to see how users would react to this new Zero Trust environment. And it was one of the few solutions where people were like, this is 10 times easier. I log in once, it's tied into my Office 365, it's tied into the identity and the fabric of my everyday life, and it's in the background. One of the best mantras my CIO says, Rico, when no one knows you exist, you know you've done your job right, which is really depressing, but it's okay. It's the life of a CISO. So we were able to get that positive feedback, like, all right, let's go to this next level. The next level was, let's get rid of our traditional gateway URL filtering, because what we were doing is once we went to VPN 2.0, we had a URL filtering list on the agent, the Zscaler, and then we had one on premise. So when you went on premise, you had this conflicting URL filtering. So we got rid of that, and then we just had direct access to our SaaS applications, because now we had the controls on the agent, ensuring that you only are accessing the appropriate SaaS applications, and now you have direct access to the internet, and regardless if you're at home, Tahiti, space, submarine, whatever you want, you have access to your applications and the controls follow you. So that was our first phase. Our second phase was around reducing the VPNs, having a direct experience, and ensuring that everyone had that unified experience. So it also made the service desk super happy. They always hate us, so it was a really big win for us to ensure that we were able to do that. So this year, we've also started the journey of the actual role-based access. So we've done a few pilots with the teams that hate us most, finance, HR, and IT, because we hate ourselves, as our test pilot, because they're the most vocal business units that we have in the organization. So we started a few, it's a little hiccups, and it's mainly because it's hard for end users to tell us what they need to access. So we've been working with Zscaler on ways to quickly identify what are common trends of access for this individual. Like, I'm in HR, I don't know what I access. You really should, but here, we're going to help you trend the type of behavior you have in the environment and help build these, what I'll call level 1 role-based access. So that was our first phase, and it's gone pretty well. What we're really focused on is that parallel path, making sure that we have the, what I'll call phase 1 of our role-based access. 2, huge win. I'm happy Jay forced me to put some slides here. For those that do M&A, you no longer have to bridge the networks. If you remember a traditional M&A, hey, we're buying this organization, we do not know what kind of dumpster fire is over there. And then you have to get pen testers, make sure it's clean, and then you have to certify it, and then the CISO says, oh yeah, I think it's great. If something goes horrible, it's on me. Those days are gone. It's super awesome. What you do is you'll throw either a connector in there, or you install the agents on the host in the acquisition company, and you can slowly start migrating components and applications with never bridging the networks. Our time to value for M&A, or time to discover, time to value, sound like a business person, time to acquire or the transition went from months of getting lease lines, making sure you have people on the ground, to less than a week. You're able to do those quick pivot points like, hey, our first point is make sure those users can access our SAP, access our ServiceNow, yada, yada, yada. And it's very quick to be able to do it with Zscaler. So if you take anything from today from a true end user of the product, M&A is such an easy win. And going back to the North Star, our next journey, which Jay is helping us, because it's a very long journey, getting to the utopia, is what's called the branch connector, which I called the Z-Box a year and a half ago. I called dibs on Z-Box. And what it does, where Jay highlighted with the IoTs, where you drop a box at a site, a sales office, for us, a manufacturing, a distribution center, everything routes to it that you cannot put an agent. So a badge, a printer, a camera, and it applies the same logic where it goes to the fabric and goes to the respective areas without an agent on it. So it really gives you the ability to separate, just the idea of separating a plant or a warehouse from the network, but still having that connectivity. It's a huge work in progress, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it will be a monumental difference in the industry once we have this moving forward. We work very closely with underwriters from an insurance perspective, and the idea of having true micro and macro segmentation in your environment, they just salivate like crazy hyenas looking at me. They're like, this is so amazing. If you can actually make this happen, you're reducing a significant amount of risk from the organization and a risk from the underwriting perspective that can actually increase your coverage and reduce your premiums, which is a win-win across the board. So I think we'll finalize here. Again, the Zscaler journey is not overnight. And make sure that as you as you start your Zero Trust journey, have those small wins. Take a very modular approach. Ours was very small that we knew we were not going to do role-based access. We knew it was VPN 2.0, and that's okay. Everyone's journey to Zero Trust is different. You could have a very complex or a really decentralized environment. The really nice part about Zscaler, it lets it be very modular. No, Jay didn't tell me to say that, but it's very easy for you to adopt and grow as an organization in your Zero Trust journey.
That's wonderful. Yeah, talk about the myth a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. No, see, it blocked out. I can't even tell you about the myth. So the myth, moving firewalls and VPNs to cloud is Zero Trust. Oh, my God. I hear this so much. And everyone says, oh, you move it to the cloud, immediately you're Zero Trust. I think you had that beautiful slide up there where that evil spider web with all the red lines, that's exactly what moving your stuff to the cloud is. You really have to have that fabric and create an island of islands to really have that Zero Trust journey. So moving your stuff to the cloud, just saying, oh, all VPN, all your firewalls are now cloud-enabled, cloud-based, that's great. You just modernized. Kudos, that's not Zero Trust.
We are out of time. One last question I get all the time.
What?
It impacts network, it impacts security. Sometimes there are silos in large companies.
Absolutely.
How do you make them work together to achieve this? Because it can't be done otherwise.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. IT hates me a lot, and I'm part of IT. And it's been a very long journey because as you adopt a Zero Trust, specifically Zscaler Zero Trust, you're removing components that have traditionally been networking. So imagine the idea of taking the firewalls away, taking web filtering away that have always lived within networking. Again, you need to build that collaboration up front and take that small component or those small modular approaches that really helps you do big wins. And also, cool trick is pretend it was their idea, and it'll help you proceed a lot quicker.
Wonderful. With that, Ricardo, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Wonderful journey,
So
great
much.
partnership. Thank you so much. Great.
Jay, Ricardo, thank you.